Hi everybody, my name is Rick. I'm an alcoholic. I have been through the process with a loving God, a step study sponsor, and meetings like this, people like yourselves, and a lot of patience. That qualifies me as group conscience to be able to share at meetings like this. So I want to get right into the fifth step. You guys already had done the fourth step. You know what that's all about. So once I got all that ground glass out and I stuck it on the table and I put it on paper and I was able to see it, the reason why I put it on paper is to be able to see it and to be accountable to, because if I just think about it in my head, it tells me right here, we think we've done well in admitting these things to ourselves, but we usually find that a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. I can talk myself out of anything. I can talk myself right back out the door. That's why we have a fifth step. It's an accountability not only to myself and to a God of my understanding, but another human being. So usually for me, if I'm working with you and you want to talk to a priest, that's wonderful. Rock it till you drop. But I also need to be able to know what's going on with you. I need to be able to know what's in your fourth step so that we can efficiently move forward. This is the only step for me that I can see in the book where the time frame is 1 hour. It's not immediately at once, next, or now. So I get that 1 hour, but that 1 hour is to be spent where? With God. It's not doing the dishes. It's not calling my buddy. It's not going shopping. It's not anything. I had to be able to sit in my recliner, take this book, and review those first 5 proposals, as it tells me on page 59. Review those first 5 proposals. What am I doing here? Have I been doing the next right thing all along? Have I been solid? Have I been, is my work honest and thorough? Because it tells us, we beg of you to be honest and thorough from the very start. 64 pages or 63 pages talk about steps 1, 2, and 3. That's a lot. Because you know what? I got to make sure that I identify with being a real alcoholic. I have to make sure that, I'm not just some heavy hitter that hit a bump in the road that could probably get by, without this book. I tried getting by without this book for a long time. A long time. My book used to hold up my window because, in the old apartments, you had window weights before, right? Remember the window weights? And you could always hear them go all the way down to the cellar. I had to hold my window up for a while, and my book did that for me. If you ever wanted to hide something from me, you just stick it in the big book, I would have never found it, right? I came to this very meeting, the tables were this way at the time. I think Denise remembers. And there was a young lady up here, and she was sharing, and I didn't understand quite the impact of what the criteria was to share at this meeting. And they were talking about the fourth step. I hadn't done the work through the book, and you can always tell within a 5-minute conversation whether or not somebody's been through the work, right? So here I am sitting over here, one of those tables going that way, and it was my turn to share, and I'm going on and on and on and on and on. And this woman cuts me off mid-sentence. Yeah, somebody can identify. Cuts me off mid-sentence and says, "Sir, have you been through the work with a big book step study sponsor?" I was like, "You cut me off mid-sentence?" That's all I was concerned about, right? You cut me off mid-sentence. So I got up and I walked out, and I hadn't darkened the doorway of this meeting for another 25 years. 25 years with untreated alcoholism. Can you imagine that? Somebody came up to me one day and said, "Rick, if I was as angry as you, I'd drink." And as I'm pouring my problems all over a noontime meeting, I had this young man come up to me and said, "I'll take you through the book." Had no idea what book he was talking about. Didn't care, right? I had been around meetings for a long, long time. And he just had what I needed and wanted. And I had to be so flexible, my middle name became Fluid. And I just did what he told me to do. I was that desperate. And when I got to this step, and I paint a picture for you. I'm in my backyard. It's all fenced in, privacy fence, right? And it's in a decent part of town. Birds are singing, It's in the middle of the summer. And, I had lost a job. So this is funny. I had lost a job just as I start my 4th step. And just after I get done with my 9th step, I get a new job. How coincidental is that? Nah. God definitely had a hand in that. So I'm doing my 5th step, and it's in the middle of the summer, and birds are singing. And my sponsor, who I'm pouring this out on, right, who's already seen very much of my work as we were going along to make sure that the format was right, make sure I'm getting the most out of it that I possibly can, and then I'm putting as much into it as I'm supposed to. So he's reading it here and there. So he's on the phone. No, just go ahead, keep reading. I'm like, I don't get this, right? He came to me. There were intervals where he wasn't on the telephone, and he would tell me exactly what to do while we were doing my 5th step. And when I went back upstairs, and he left, got on his motorcycle, and he's vroom away, and I'm sitting in that recliner, and I sit in the recliner, and I take the book. It wasn't down from a shelf. It was on the end table next to me. But metaphorically speaking, I take it down from the shelf, and I look at those. I look at the steps as they're written on page 59, and I try to remember, exactly how these materialized in my life. And although this young man has 10 fewer years of abstinence than I do, he had a lot more recovery than I did. And that's what I needed. So I'm looking at it, and it's funny because I see that 1 hour, and I set a timer. I actually set a timer for that 1 hour. And a lot of that hour was in prayer. Help me to move forward. Help me to do the next right thing. If I'm missing something, show me. Any one of those avenues that I could cover, that's what my prayer entailed. Because meditation is not just sitting back, and it's a focal point of concentration. It's a focused thought process. And that's what I had to do. I had to focus my thought process on what was in front of me. So, I love the 5th step promises. It says we can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. And for the first time in my life, since I started drinking at the AA legal age of 13, I had perfect peace and ease. I can't explain it. It's like trying to explain to you what color the letter 7 smells like. It just doesn't match unless you experience it yourself. So if you're new in this room and you haven't experienced this yet, wait, it's coming, and it's going to be like nothing you've ever experienced before. Our fears fall from us, and we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. I've heard it said that I now feel like I'm a card-carrying member of AA. That was a feeling that I had. It's also one of those feelings that, a 10-ton truck was lifted off my chest. I got all that crap out. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin, and that's the key word, we begin to have a spiritual experience. So it talks about a spiritual experience in the appendix, the spiritual experience, but it doesn't tell us, the 12th step doesn't tell us where we have that spiritual, it just says that we do as a result of. So this tells us that, now we begin to have a spiritual experience. And for me, it was a variety. It was a garden variety over a period of time. It wasn't a white light for me. It was that garden variety over time, or I forget the word. Educational variety. Thank you. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel that we're on, and this is capitalized, broad highway. I was always told to pay attention to what's capitalized in this book because it really means something spiritual. Walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. I can't tell you how, and it tells us earlier in the step, how vital this step is. Vital meaning, life-sustaining. It's not life, it's not life support, it's life-sustaining. In other words, I'm not going to die if I don't do it, but I'm going to live a lot better if I do. So it sustains life. It sustains a way of life that we now are ready to compile into the rest of the work here. And without getting further into the steps, all I can say is that, each one builds on the other. And if they use a lot of building references in this book, so in order to build something on a site that already has a building, I have to tear down the old, which is what has already happened. This is where I begin to rebuild the new. Does that make sense? Thank you for letting me share, and thank you for listening. That's my experience with Step 5.